much for that kind introduction. Thank you. It reminded me of that race. It reminded me of that race from a couple years ago when I came to CPAC to speak in January or February of that year. And I remember after getting elected, and let me tell you, it's pretty impressive when you get to Washington, you go into these meetings, you start looking around the room and you see so-and-so, they were on Meet the Press, look at so-and-so, he ran for president, look at so-and-so. It's pretty amazing. And you start wondering yourself, man, how did I get here? And about 6 months later, you look around the same room and you say, man, how did they get here? So we're at that phase now. But thank you for this opportunity to speak to you for a moment. What I think is really a critical moment in our country's history. And I think you're going to hear that from every speaker tonight. But I wanted to take 2 points about why I think this moment is so critical. First of all, let me share with you something that I hope you believe with all your heart. And that is that while we are facing true challenges and real obstacles, there isn't a single nation on earth right now that I would trade places with. There is no other country that I would rather be. That doesn't mean we don't have challenges and problems to confront, and I'll talk about those in a moment. But I am convinced that despite the bad leadership that we're getting today, we are literally on the verge, if we make a few right decisions, of a new American century. And I know that at CPAC it draws a lot of younger voters, a lot of younger Americans, and I want you to believe that that's possible because it truly is. The opportunities of this new century are extraordinary, and they make possible for America its best moment ever. Speaker after speaker will tell you that they believe our greatest days are yet to come. I know that to be true, but we have to overcome some of the challenges that we face. And the good news is that they can be overcome. Now, our economy today is living through a moment of extraordinary economic insecurity. This is happening as much as anything else because the global economy has completely transformed in our lifetime. Now, my grandfather used to remind me when he helped raise me that when he was born, there weren't even airplanes in the sky. And before he turned 70, an American had walked on the moon. That's how much the world changed in 70 years. Now I realize that the world is changing even faster now than it ever has before. And this presents real challenges for our economy, but it also presents real opportunities. But that requires us to have a tax code that encourages investment. That encourages us to deal with runaway regulations that are discouraging innovation. And that requires us to sell more of the products that we have, particularly energy, to markets around the world that can now afford to buy American oil and natural gas. This administration has failed in this regard because the policies they pursue have never worked, and they work less now than ever before. They love to sell big government as a way to help those who are trying to make it. What they don't tell you is that they actually hurt the people who are trying to make it. Here's why they hurt them. Big government. If you're a big corporation or a multi-billionaire, you may not like big government, but you can afford to deal with big government. You can hire law firms and lobbyists to help influence that law or to help navigate it. If you are trying to start a business out of the spare bedroom of your home, probably in violation of the zoning code, but if you're trying to start a spare business out of the bedroom of your home, you can't deal with runaway regulations and complicated laws. And that's why we're not getting the sort of investment and innovation that our country desperately needs. Do you realize American companies have close to $4 trillion in cash sitting in bank accounts? That's more than the entire size of the German economy. But they will not invest it in this country so long as we have a runaway debt, runaway regulations, and a tax code that discourages investment in America, and a health care law that must be repealed. Because their policies fail, they resort to what the left always resorts to: dividing people against each other. More than any other administration in modern American history, they go to Americans that are struggling and they tell them the reason why you're worse off is because someone is doing too well. It is someone else's fault that you are going through these difficult times, and the only solution is to give government more power to go after those people. This disunity they've created in our country is unacceptable, and it is holding us back from that American century. This notion that we're going to pit Americans against each other on issue after issue is something that we should never accept as a people, because it's never been who we are, and it isn't who we are right now. But there are some other challenges that we face. We can overcome these economic challenges because the good news is that the primary cause of them is a president who's done in 3 years. Our other challenges are a little more difficult, and that involves the world around us. And the events of the last few weeks reminds us of exactly what it is we're talking about. I grew up in an era where people used to tell us, I remember college professors in particular telling us, that we had to accept the spread of communism and the existence of the Soviet Union as a permanent thing. That we needed to deal with that and perhaps even accept the notion that they would actually be on the rise while we would be on the decline. Fortunately for us, we had a leader in the White House that didn't accept that notion. And by my second year in college, the Berlin Wall came tumbling down, and so did the Soviet Union. I want you to take a moment and look at the world around us today, because it is truly as challenging as that period of time was to our country and the world. In Asia, China is making increasing territorial claims. They claim they control islands that do not belong to them. In fact, they claim they control almost the entire sea, where a significant portion of world commerce traverses through there. In North Korea, they not only have nuclear weapons, they're developing rockets capable of reaching the United States. In Latin America, an illegitimate Venezuelan government is slaughtering and killing innocent protesters in the street. And Cuba continues to be a dictatorship that oppresses its own people as well. In the Middle East, Iran is acquiring or trying to acquire nuclear weapons and a capability to become the dominant power in the region. Al-Qaeda, which was once a cell of terrorists hiding out in caves, has now spread into 5 or 6 separate cells operating in 12 to 13 countries. And of course, in Europe, Vladimir Putin is trying to reconstitute the power and the influence of the former Soviet Union. I say this to you because of the number of young people that are here today. I want you to extrapolate what the world would look like in 10 years if this continues forward. If you inherit a world where the Chinese get to decide who gets to ship products to the South China Sea, and all the countries in that region are tributaries to them. If you inherit a world where North Korea can blow up California or the west coast of the United States with a nuclear weapon. If you inherit a world where Iran can reach the east coast of the United States and can wipe Israel off the face of the earth with a nuclear attack. If you inherit a world where Russia continues to hold its neighbors hostage, not just because of its military capabilities, but also because of dependency on Russian oil and gas. And by the way, what do all these countries have in common? These are totalitarian governments. All the problems of the world, all the conflicts of the world are being created by totalitarian regimes who are more interested in forcing people to do what they want them to do than truly achieving peace and prosperity and respect for the rights